I would like to take this opportunity to update the Guyanese population on a statement I regard as very reckless, immature, and one that only seeks to derive political gains. Whilst I'm sure that if one is to examine the statement by Mr. Harman in relation to the Sputnik vaccine, dissuading Guyanese from taking the Sputnik vaccine, you would find it to be self-serving, shamefully reckless, selfish, and against the interests of Guyana and Guyanese. This is a man who shamefully tried to steal an election some months ago. This is a man who himself took the Sputnik vaccine. Who himself took the Sputnik vaccine. There is a limit to which one's selfishness can go. In this case, the limit must be to issue a statement that put the lives of Guyanese, families and communities at risk. That is what Mr. Harman has done. On more than one occasions, I said to the Guyanese population that this government is going to explore all avenues to ensure we get vaccination, we get our people vaccinated. This is the only way we can get ahead of the curve and return Guyana to normalcy. And that position would not change. Every single manufacturer, developer, countries, whether it was for Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Sputnik, we tried. We tried countries directly, we tried developers directly, we tried manufacturers directly. We tried diplomatic channels. We tried every single thing, and we continue to try every single day. We have requests with every single developer and manufacturers for vaccines to protect the life of Guyanese people. Many companies and agencies approached us. We tried. I announced that we were getting the Sputnik from the UAE at $20. Very, very early, I made it very clear to the Guyanese people, because there is no cost to protecting the lives of Guyanese. And that is the only interest of the government. That is my only interest. Let me assure Guyanese that more than 74 countries across the world are using Sputnik. The clinical data for Sputnik is already with the EU and WHO approving authorities. Countries all across the globe use Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm without the WHO approval, prior to the WHO approval. UK used AstraZeneca before the WHO approval. All the scientific literature tells you how important vaccination is. Countries are fighting desperately to get these vaccines. These vaccines are not easily procured. We have tried every single measure. And for Mr. Harman to try to discredit those efforts, for Mr. Harman to now try to dissuade Guyanese at this important public health juncture of our country, is reckless and shameful. Let me also say that every single shipment of Sputnik comes with batch number and serial number. And before it's administered, it has to comply fully with the local regulatory approval system. On your vaccination card itself, there is batch number and serial number that can be matched back to the manufacturer's data. So I implore Guyanese not to fall prey to the political selfishness of Harman, not to fall prey to the shameful recklessness and self-serving interest of Joseph Harman. And he's doing this at a time when our country would have lost a close colleague of his in Region 10. He is doing this at a time when he himself took Sputnik. This level of irresponsibility, this level of selfishness is beyond anything that a leader or someone who ascribes himself with the values of leadership can demonstrate. So I call on Guyanese to heed the calls of the Ministry of Health, heed the calls of scientists, heed the call of the scientific community, heed the call of doctors, and get vaccinated. We'll continue to roll out the Sputnik and other vaccines when they become available. We are expecting shipment from the African platform, from COVAX. We have heard the announcement from the US. Those will augment our effort. But get vaccinated. I implore you, please, my Guyanese brothers and sisters. Vaccination is an essential part of the struggle against COVID. It protects you, it protects your family, and it gives us an opportunity to get out of this pandemic. Please get vaccinated. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Hello there, good evening, and welcome to Let's Talk Politics. I'm your host, Eddie Layne, and of course, with me this evening is the Honorable, I still say the Honorable Dr. Leslie Ramsammy. Dr. Ramsammy is a former Minister of Health in the People's Progressive Party civic government. He served as Minister of Agriculture, and also he currently serves as advisor to the Minister of Health. Dr. Ramsammy, good evening, and welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, so tonight, I think our viewers have already gotten an idea of not too sure what it, could you hear me now? Could you hear? All right. So yes, so seem to have a little bit of technical difficulties there, and nonetheless, I'm saying that most of our viewers, I suspect, understand tonight's context of understand the context rather of tonight's discussion. That is the low down, poor, shameless, almost criminal act of Joseph Harmon when he stood publicly and attempt to tell Guyanese not to take the Sputnik vaccine. Incidentally, at the time when he himself confessed publicly that he took both doses of the Sputnik vaccine, and many of the MPs of his party also took the Sputnik vaccine, stood to raise questions about the authenticity of the vaccine. Um, I'm not too sure why I'm having this problem, but as we go along, I'll try to get this figured out. So, Dr. Ramsam, I'm going to bring you in here almost immediately so that we examine the posture of Joseph Harmon today.
I think that both the president and the minister of health are absolutely on point when they say that Mr. Harmon's action today was not just irresponsible, but absolutely reckless. What Mr. Harmon has done is to put the lives of people in this country, all the people in this country, including people who voted for them, at risk. The vaccines we use in Guyana are all safe vaccines. They have been proven to be safe. So far, more than 1 billion people in the world have taken vaccines against COVID 19 safely. There is no evidence that any of the vaccines have led to deaths anywhere in the world. The Sputnik vaccine, that is the one targeted by Mr. Harmon, as the president stated so clearly, has been used in 74 different countries. In Latin America and the Caribbean, 12 countries have used Sputnik. In the Caribbean, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent, and Guyana have used the vaccine. Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Panama, Mexico are all countries that have used Sputnik vaccine safely. Guyana, as we speak right now, have had more than 225,000 Guyanese who have had a first dose vaccine. And we are now approaching 100,000 Guyanese that are fully vaccinated. More than half of these have taken Sputnik V. But here is the important point, that not a single Guyanese has tested positive for COVID 19 when they have been fully vaccinated. Of that 100,000 people who are now fully vaccinated, not a single one have tested positive for COVID 19. Not one of them have been in the ICU, and clearly none have died. And that is proof here. Let us forget other countries. It's proof right in this country that the vaccines are safe and the vaccines are effective. And for Mr. Harmon to come now and raise question and demanding that we suspend that vaccine, what Mr. Harmon is doing is saying to the government of Guyana, leave these people, let them die. We will not do that. We will not be so irresponsible and reckless. And I agree with you, Eddie. It's not just recklessness, it's criminal. It's absolutely criminal to put people's lives at risk. It's tantamount to assassinating people. And so I am upset and I'm angry that we have in our hands something that will protect our people and save lives. And Mr. Herman, having himself taken the vaccine, want us to withhold that vaccine from people until he tells us. We will not do so. We will continue our campaign in this country with all the vaccines we have, including Sputnik. And it is not just that it is used in 74 countries. As you know, Eddie, and our listeners, there's been lots of talk about variants. We know of the P1 variant in Brazil that was previously called the Brazilian variant. We know about the Delta variant in England and so on. Well, in a study done by Argentine scientists recently, it was proven that the Sputnik vaccine protects not only against coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but it also protects against the variants. And so we have a vaccine that is safe. Now, let me say this, that Mr. Harmon says that it's a fake vaccine. Our vaccine comes, as the president rightly said, with its batch numbers and so. And if Mr. Harmon opens his blue book, you, Eddie, has had your vaccine, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to us tonight have had their vaccine. For those listeners, if you have your book close at hand, open it. You will see that we record what vaccine you took, when you took it, and we record the batch number. These vaccines have a tracking number. So for those of you who paid attention when the nurse was giving you, you notice the nurse always show you the vial. You will see a barcode. That barcode has a tracking number on it that we can track the vaccine all the way back to the factory. And so when Mr. Harmon talked about fake vaccine, he, one, knows better. I'm sure he knows that we can track the vaccine. It is a deliberate attempt to confuse people and mislead people. And it is consistent with what we all know they're doing. On the one hand, recently they have come out and say we support vaccination, but we know they are engaged in a whisper campaign. The whisper campaign has begun to fall apart, and people have been coming forward. And that is the real reason Mr. Harmon is now talking about fake vaccine. And before you ask me some question, let me clear to every Guyanese. Guyana has an authority that examine, approve, and license medicines and vaccines, our Food and Drug Department. But our Food and Drug Department don't just register things just like that, just because people want them to. They follow the evidence. And in this case, we not only have the clinical data to show how safe and effective all of the vaccines are, we have validation. I told you just now about the study in Argentina. But the clinical trials that were done before this vaccine was put in use was analyzed by scientists around the world, and their report in that assessment was published in a journal called The Lancet. In fact, it is the only vaccine for which the clinical trial data was made available for scientists outside of the company and outside of the regulatory authority in Russia and in other places for them to evaluate and assess. And that report was published in the Lancet, which is a prestigious British journal. The Russians, Gamaleya, the company that made the vaccine, have applied for the WHO approval and for the European Union approval. And they are presently in the process of approving Sputnik vaccine. Now I know that Mr. Harman made a point on that, and I know that Prime Minister Rowley, I'm sure you will want to ask me about that, raised that issue. But listen, as the President said clearly, the first dose of AstraZeneca was used on the 5th of December 2020 in England. But that AstraZeneca vaccine was not approved by the WHO until February. So that they were using this vaccine because they had their clinical trial data before the WHO issued their approval. Pfizer was first administered in the United States of America on the 13th of December 2020. Pfizer was not approved at the time by the WHO. The WHO did not give an approval for Pfizer until the end of December. Moderna and Johnson and Johnson did not get approval from the WHO until around March or April. Don't remember the exact date, but it was this year during the first quarter. But their use began before the WHO approval. And so countries use their regulatory authority with the evidence they have before the WHO. The WHO comes afterwards. So this issue about Sputnik and WHO is a non-issue. It's for wicked people who want to create doubts in people's mind. But we have the evidence here, not just the evidence that we have in clinical trials. We have it right here. More than 100,000 Guyanese have had their first, more than 150,000 now, have had their first dose from with Sputnik. And as I said, more than 60,000 Guyanese out of the 100,000 are fully vaccinated with Sputnik. Not one of them have ended up with COVID or ended up in the hospital. So the proof is there. And please, sisters and brothers, Mr. Harman should be irrelevant in this. All he's doing is proving his irrelevance and that he does not act in the interest of the people of this country. And if you can't act in the interest of your own supporters, you don't deserve the attention of the people of this country. So I say to all of you, ignore Mr. Harman. He wants attention. He's been the worst opposition leader in this country. He wants attention. He's trying to find something. And now he has decided the best way to gain attention is to put people's lives at risk. I say to us all, let's say to him, no, we will not allow you to put our lives at risk. Our president, our government have gone out there, they've brought the vaccine. We will take this vaccine and we will end the scourge of COVID in this country. That's what my response to Mr. Harman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramsammy. And interestingly, one has to look and really understand the agenda of Harman and the PNC. Because one will recall that this all started out as an issue of the price for the Sputnik V vaccine. And I think as a result of a recognition on the part of Harman and the others that you cannot put a price to the lives of people. You cannot put a price to a vaccine that has proven to be successful, that has the potential or that is effective rather in saving lives of people. So they decide to shift the goalpost. They realize that that argument is not sticking. That argument is not flying. People are not accepting that you were trying to say that the government of Guyana should not have procured vaccines because you think that it could have been a dollar or two cheaper, while allowing people to be exposed to get sick and many of them dying. So that argument didn't work. Harman and his gang has now shifted the goalpost. And Harman, in his own words today, claims that illegal, fake vaccines were bought. And he was confronted by a journalist who asked him to provide the evidence of the fake vaccines of which he is speaking. He went on to talk about suspension of the vaccination as a result of information that he wants. So this is about Harman. Dr. Ramsammy, this is the reality. Harman, who took the vaccine, the Sputnik vaccine, both doses, whose MPs, many of his relatives and his friends who took the vaccine, is now saying to the people of this country, I want you not take the vaccine and you wait until I get information. Some mysterious information he is waiting on. Now, which part of that, for any right thinking Guyanese, sounds as though this is a man who is concerned about your health? He is concerned about his narrow political agenda. He's concerned about information that he wants after taking the vaccine. So this fella took the vaccine, ensured that he is safe, and he is saying to the rest of the population, you don't take it, you wait. You wait. It doesn't matter if you get sick, if you contract the virus, and if you die, or if your relatives die. You don't take the vaccine. Harman has been contradicting himself repeatedly. And he was asked again today, should Guyanese heed his call not to take the vaccine and they get sick and they die? Is he willing to take responsibility for their lives lost? In my view, if Harman continues this call and any single person he that call and that person gets sick and die, it is blood, on Harman's hands. That's the reality. I have a short video I'll play, Dr. Ramsamy, before I bring you in back here to respond to what I'm saying. So I'll ask the guys to just play that video of Harman himself confessing that he took the Sputnik V.
Dennis, we have gone out and encouraged Guyanese to take the vaccine. I myself have taken the Sputnik, first dose and second dose. I have done it. Many of my MPs have done it. And so it is not in our interest to kill this vaccine. It is in our interest to ensure Guyanese are not killed by the vaccine. Right? This is our interest. So once we are satisfied that all of the boxes have been ticked off, then certainly we will do what is necessary. But as of now, what is necessary is that we put a halt on things until such time that that information can be provided. I do not feel comfortable going out there and speaking to people who are taking this particular vaccine, when in fact there's so many questions about it that has been raised as a result of what the minister said in Parliament on Monday. But I will be the first to come out and say, once everything has been cleared, that yes, this has been cleared, and I am confident enough to stand before you
and to say that this is a safe vaccine.
Dr. Ramsammy, what you make of this? Imagine this guy confessing that he took the vaccine, but he's not comfortable encouraging other people, other Guyanese to take the vaccine. Could you believe
The
the level to which these
hypocrisy.
fellas go?
It's total hypocrisy. When I looked at that clip, I see a hypocrite. Because not only did they take the Sputnik vaccine, many of them, they requested that vaccine. How could you question the safety and efficacy of the vaccine when you are standing there safely, healthy? Vaccine didn't kill you. You are watching people, watch them in their eyes and tell them, I took the vaccine, but I'm not comfortable telling you to take it because I don't know whether it is safe. That is the hallmark of a hypocrite. And if I was angry before, watching that clip makes me utterly upset. Because don't they understand that ordinary Guyanese is watching them questioning the safety of the vaccine whilst they stand up there and admit, I took both doses. Many of my MPs took the vaccine. Well, not one of you got sick when you took the vaccine and got into the hospital. All of you that have taken both doses, you didn't get COVID and go into the hospital. You know who got COVID? The ones who didn't take the vaccine. And so how are you going to watch people in their eyes stand up in front of a media and say, I took both vaccine, I'm okay, but you don't take it because it will kill you? If that's not hypocrisy, what is? So that's my response. And Eddie, earlier, you identify where they started out. It was the price. Did Mr. Harmon ever worry about the $10 billion of expired medicine? It's the people's money. And whilst people didn't get insulin to save their lives, while they didn't get antibiotic, when they didn't get their metformin or blood pressure pill, because we squandered $10 billion, 50 million US dollars, and you talking about the price we paid? But listen to this. In 2016, they bought medicine at between 5 and 8 times the normal price for these medicine. Mr. Harmon didn't worry about the price of the medicine. He's now worried about the price that is what we see on the market. Everyone who have bought Sputnik admit that the price is between $19 and $25. Everyone. So Guyana paid the market price. When you say we pay too much, it got to mean that we are paying something other than the market price. So now I'm going to speak directly to the Guyanese people. The Russians have announced that the price at the gate, that is the price at the factory, is just over $10 per dose. That has to be sent through a number of things before it gets to Guyana. So, do you really find that the $20 we paid, which include cost of transportation and so, is way beyond the factory price of just over $10? But the most important thing is what the vice president said. That we went to Pfizer, the minister and I spoke to Pfizer more than 3 times. I was in 3 of the meetings, but I know the minister has been speaking to Pfizer. And we haven't given up. We are still speaking to Pfizer. We have spoken to Moderna. We're still speaking to them. We have spoken to AstraZeneca. We're still speaking to them. We have spoken to Johnson & Johnson. Still speaking to them. We've spoken to China. We've spoken to India. We have spoken to Russia. Countries, to the developers, etc. And as the Vice President said, when it comes to the lives of our people, we had decided, and the President in his statement that was played before we started talking said that we are committed to ensuring that every Guyanese is vaccinated this year, not next year. And if we could do that this month, we will make sure that that happens. And therefore, we were willing to pay whatever the market price is. And we remain committed. As a person working at the Ministry of Health, I am assured and I am glad, grateful that the President, the Vice President, the Minister of Health, the Cabinet have committed, of whatever the cost is, we are going to make sure that every Guyanese is vaccinated. That is a government that has the interests of the people at heart. That is a government that cares for people. That is unlike what Mr. Harman did today. To say to people, I took it, I'm safe, and it gives me strength to come and tell all of you, don't take the vaccine, die. Die so we could prove a point. Well, guess what? We are not falling for that. And the Guyanese people will not fall for that. So when Mr. Harman cried crocodile tears about the price of the vaccine, he must come and explain to the Guyanese people why they didn't care when they were buying overpriced medicine. Hey, listen, Mr. Harman, not far from this ministry, you guys went and rented a house for $12.5 million a month. A house, not a warehouse. And you paid the security throughout that period. That's part of the rental agreement. You agreed to pay the security. You agreed to pay the VAT. You agreed to pay for the cost of the electricity and air condition. And so when the monthly charges came out, it was $15 million a month. For just a year, you paid over $175 million. And what did you store in there? It was an obsolete CT scan that now we have to get rid of because it was never used. It was some condoms. That's what you spent $175 million for. And you talking about buying a dose of vaccine for $20 for our people? That's sheer hypocrisy. And it demonstrates that you don't care one iota for any of the citizens of this country when you tell them don't take the vaccine. And because they're coming to get the vaccine, you have now decided, since I can't persuade them not to take the vaccine, I will force the government to suspend the program. Well, you are walking up the wrong tree. You are barking up the wrong tree, because this government is going to make sure that all of our people are vaccinated. And whether the cost is $10 or $15 or $20 or $25 per dose, we will pay the market price for the vaccine to make sure that your supporters, that every citizen, your family are vaccinated and protected against COVID. We don't want a single citizen to go to the ICU. We want to make the COVID ICU obsolete. And the way to do that is to take your vaccine. So ignore Mr. Harmon. Ignore him. Reject him. Let him know that he cannot fool us anymore.
Interestingly, Dr. Ramsammy, you touched on a couple of things there, and it is laughable almost that Harmon or anyone in the opposition who just a few months ago were in government questioning the price of and this is a case where you're in a pandemic. You're faced with a situation where there's a virus that has the potential to claim the lives of many of our citizens. Harmon is questioning. This is the same Harmon paid um, whose government paid $600 million to a supplier for drugs on an emergency basis, single source drugs. Many of it, I understand, have not yet been delivered. This is the same Harmon whose government paid monies to other suppliers on the basis of emergency, and the drugs have never been supplied. This is the same Harmon whose government left billions of dollars in expired drugs that the PPPC government found when we got into office. Now he's questioning whether it's 10, 15, or $20 for a vaccine that has the potential to save the lives of our people. Let us look at what is happening in New York, for example. Because of mass vaccination, the cases have significantly dropped, the deaths have significantly dropped. Look at China, where this all started, and look at the figures. Look at many other countries. Why do you think Trinidad is now pushing? Trinidad had an average of about 350 to 400 cases per day, and deaths were creeping into the 20s. Why do you think Trinidad, the same Trinidad we referenced today about not taking the vaccine for whatever reason, is struggling and fighting now to get vaccines? Because every single person recognized the importance of vaccination. We look at the letter. I spoke about a letter on a few programs ago by a medical personnel who wrote, not for Guyana, but who wrote that vaccination was the only and most viable means of getting us out of this pandemic. So his argument about cost has failed. And like you rightly said, Harmon and his gang, they have failed miserably to convince people in their whisper campaigns, in the bottom houses and so forth, to not take the vaccine because people recognize that the vaccine is working, including their supporters. So what do they do now? They go and they manufacture lies and misinformation. They take information and deliberately skew them so as to cast doubt over the program, so as to create confusion so that people will have second thoughts and doubts about taking the vaccine. Now, the people who are not taking the vaccines, and this is the reality, are many supporters of APNU. So they need to ask themselves one simple question. If your leader who took both doses, who took his friends and his relatives to get the vaccine, is saying to you, don't take the vaccine was good for him to protect him, his friends, and family, but it's not good for you because he needs some information. Ask yourself whether Harmon has your interest at heart, whether Harmon wants to see you live, or Harmon's sole intention, his sole purpose, is to score political points. But to what end? To what end are you trying to score political points when you're putting your own supporters, you're putting the people of this country whom you claim you so love, you're putting them at risk? This is almost criminal, in my view, Dr. Ramsamy.
And it is. But you know what happened today when he was having that press conference? Is not only he had the Sputnik vaccine and he was fine, but many of the reporters also had the Sputnik vaccine and they were fine. And that's why, because these are people who know, that's why they were giving him a tough time. But the vaccine is being manufactured right now, not just in Russia. The vaccine is being manufactured in Argentina, in Brazil, in South Korea, in India, in China. The vaccine, the Italy signed a contract and they will start production in July to produce 10 million doses. Now Mexico has signed a deal with the Russians to bottle and package the vaccine in Mexico itself. One of the issues Mr. Harmon mentioned is that Mexico received fake vaccine, and he mentioned some large number. The truth is that not a single dose of fake vaccine was ever administered in Mexico. Mexico has so far received 7 shipments of Sputnik vaccine and have used over 3.5 million doses in a contract for 34 million doses. And they have not had a single problem in Mexico. There are always going to be people around the world. We have them every day selling us Pfizer, selling us Johnson & Johnson, selling us Moderna, who come to us because there are these people who will do that. But we have systems in place because the regulatory authorities in all these countries, we are able to pick these things up. In Guyana, we have to receive documentation before shipment comes. They tell us the batch, they tell us where it's coming from, they tell us the date of manufacture, they tell us the expiration date. All that is documentation we receive. When it arrives in this, and then we have to deposit those at the Food and Drug, and we have to clear with customs. When the vaccine actually arrives in country, we have to match the information on the package with these documentation. And when we open these crates, on each of the package, each box, we have to verify the information and then trace it back. So, are there people who will attempt to bring in fake things? We have it with all kinds of medicine. There will always be that. But have you ever asked yourself, why is it that we don't have so many fake things on the market and when it comes to medicine? It's because our system works. It's because the global system works and is always looking out for that. So when Mr. Harmon talks about he has evidence of fake Sputnik, well, let him present it. The government of Guyana is showing people all the evidence. You took your vaccine, Eddie, and everyone. So we have more than 200,000 of our sisters and brothers who took it. And if I am saying anything that is not true, they will know. That's half of the population, adult population, right? Every time, didn't the nurse show you the vial? Like, this is what I'm giving to you. So if you think we are using fake vaccine, we will do that. When we record it in your book, and so Mr. Harmon is saying, well, we want to find out. We want the government to give us. Oh God, Mr. Harmon, open your damn blue book. You have the batch number. Call your people. Call the Russians and say, is this an authentic batch number? You will get it. You don't have to wait for the government to give you that. We have already gone through the various legal processes to establish that this is a legal medicine. And so if you want to question that, you don't have to wait for us. We showed you and we recorded in your book so you can check it out. There are 31 of you in Parliament. 31 of you, all of you got the vaccine. Half of you got Sputnik. You got the batch number. Go check it out. If you really think you have something, you wouldn't go on a press conference. You would check it out and come and say, we caught you. But you didn't do that because you know that that's a fake story. And so let me just say this to my sisters and brothers. There is no fake vaccine. There is a fake story. And the fraudster in this story is Mr. Harmon. And that's the truth. It is the truth. There is no fake vaccine. It's real vaccine. We have proven that it has helped people. We see it already. We see that where we have high vaccination rate, the cases have gone down, and that's not where the deaths are coming from. And we see where there are low vaccination rate, that's where the cases are coming from, and that's where our deaths are. Check all the people that die. Not one of them had their vaccine. How come suddenly the people who got vaccine are not getting this thing and they're not dying? The US has proven it. Israel has proven it. Australia has proven it. England has proven it. The whole of Europe has proven it. Oh God, man. You think people don't have sense? And so I ask my sisters and brothers, let us not go down the rabbit hole with a man trying to fool us. So when we look at some of the people, and Mr. Harmon knows, that have died, don't shed crocodile tears, Mr. Harmon. You are the one that is putting their lives at risk. So I ask my sisters and brothers, come, take your vaccine. Take your vaccine, brother. Take your vaccine, sister. And one thing I can assure you is you're not going to go to the ICU. You are not going to go to the ICU. But if you follow Mr. Harmon, whilst he's on the outside, living the high life, you will be in the ICU. You think he will care? You think he will care for you? For those of his supporters who have had COVID and whose family is in the hospital, has he ever come to visit you? Has he ever called to show he cares? But he comes on TV, he holds a press conference, and he tells you, don't take it. If your family is in there, he's saying to you, join him in there. Put your life at risk. We will not do that. So let Mr. Harmon know, we reject you. Like everything else you do, you will fail on this too.
Thank you very much, Doc. We're almost out of time, so I'll probably wrap things up here. What I just want to join with you, and you make a couple of critical points, and I hope the Guyanese people are recognizing the fact that all that Harmon is doing is looking for relevance. So he's already drafted letters, I understand, to send all over the place, and that is all he does: write letters, comes on the television, on social media, makes statements, unsubstantiated statements, ludicrous claims of all sorts of things. And this is the level of irresponsibility, of recklessness that you find coming from a gentleman, but I shouldn't have used the term gentleman, from someone who claims to be a leader who claims to have the interest of the Guyanese people and the interest of his supporters at heart. And we need to make this point repeatedly and emphasize and re-emphasize this as much as possible, Dr. Ramsammy, that Joseph Harman, the man who is telling you not to take the vaccine, took both doses. And I want to leave the Guyanese people with this before I wrap up. I want to leave them with this little piece of information that was shared today by someone. So this is what it says, and I want our viewers to listen carefully. It says, just keep in mind that Joe Harmon, who is telling you not to take the Sputnik V vaccine, which he has taken and is now safe from COVID-19, that is both doses, gets a huge salary. Well, I'm not calling the figures, and is telling you this nonsense. He gets the same amount every year to vacation. He gets duty allowance, he gets entertainment allowance, housing allowance, parliamentary allowance, chauffeur allowance, electricity allowance, cleaner, gardener, and everything. A man whose life is comfortable, who, if he gets ill, which is highly unlikely from COVID 19, that he's going to get sick to the extent where he will be hospitalized. But let's say if he gets sick or one of his relatives get sick, he is working enough monies to take them somewhere to get treatment. Think about your family. Think about you, the average Guyanese, who he wants to follow his instruction of not taking the vaccine. As you put it aptly, Dr. Ramsammy, this is the level of hypocrisy. And I don't want to call him an idiot or a fool, but when one listens to what he says, I mean, that's the only conclusion you can draw. A man who took the vaccine saying to you, don't take it. Because he's concerned that you're going to get something is going to wrong. And he's telling you to take it at a point where the clinical trials, there is more clinical trial as against when he took it. Because he took it a couple of months ago. Now, between then and now, there was more uh, doses administered to more people, and the clinical data is even more overwhelming. But he's telling you no, not to take it. But he took it a few months ago, and he's one of them, I suspect, Dr. Ramsamy, who was begging for the age limit to be waived, so that his friends and families and close ones can get the vaccine. He's coming to you to tell you not to take the vaccine. I say to you, Guyanese, I took the vaccine, Dr. Ramsamy mentioned, and I took Sputnik V. And I'm absolutely fine. And I know many other people who took Sputnik V, and they're fine. So, as the common saying goes, you big and you got sense. You make the determination if you really need to listen to Harman, who is safe from his vaccine, and you who are not who are not safe. Dr. Ramsamy, I'll give you a minute to give your closing comments, and then we wrap
Well,
things up.
all I will say to you and to all our sisters and brothers is Mr. Harmon stood there and gave you a good reason why you should go get your vaccine. He admitted he took the vaccine. He looked quite healthy. Nothing went wrong with him. The vaccine didn't hurt him. The vaccine has kept him safe. So if we are all want a reason tomorrow to go and get our vaccine, look at Mr. Harmon. He took it, it was safe, and he is healthy. We all want to be safe. We all want to be healthy. So let us go out tomorrow and get our vaccine. And over the next few days, so we could all together as a country, our president, our vice president, our prime minister, our minister of health, and all of us take the vaccine together, make our country safe, so we could open up this country and bring normalcy to our lives again. So God bless all of you. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ramsamy, and thanks to our viewers and listeners. We're going to be back with you soon. Until then, we say have a good rest of the evening, and remember to take your vaccine.